Max Verstappen and two other legends of the sport were brutal in their criticism of the new regulations for the 2026 Formula 1 season. I've been following the comments from all the drivers and teams very closely, and there's still an awful lot that needs to be looked at before we can start in Australia next month. Now, Formula 1 management and the FIA can be two pretty stubborn organizations, and I'm afraid the sport will pay a hefty price if there's no major changes. Let's see what the biggest issues are, how they can be fixed, and what would happen if those problems are ignored. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. Max Verstappen's biggest issues with the regulations are that the way to drive and recharge the batteries is unnatural and not fun. F1 chose to have a 50-50 split between battery and combustion power to attract new manufacturers like Audi and in a few years GM. The FOM is happy because new teams offer new markets and more security in case a financial crisis comes along again and we lose a team or two. This is what happened in 2008 with the banking crisis. Unfortunately, these teams want some relevance to their road cars, and since electrification of cars is still going on, the big producers want to use that IP to implement on their road cars. That much is clear. What I don't understand is why it's so important to have this 50-50 split rather than something more practical. A smaller battery split and more combustion would stop the need to downshift and drive slowly in corners. Those manufacturers have committed. They're not going to walk off if a few percentages are shifted in one way or another. Then there's the issue with the start procedures. Cars have to sit on the track for 20 seconds with high revs to get the batteries charged. And if a driver makes the slightest miscalculation, the start is messed up and they get away too slow. This is very dangerous according to Alex Brundle, son of Martin Brundle, who both work for F1 Media. Alex says that it's bound to cause huge crashes if the guy in P20 has a great start and the guy in P5 doesn't. The driver coming from the back could potentially crash into the stalled car. Fred Vasseur, Ferrari's team principal, has pointed this out ages ago, but FIA refused to do anything about it, so they fixed it themselves. But now McLaren wants something to be done about the starts. Obviously Vasseur and Ferrari are against this, as they've already spent resources on fixing this problem. So they already said they would not accept a change. I don't know if this has anything to do with their veto right, but it's a pretty messed up situation. About a year ago I made a video called The Downsides of Having Cadillac in F1 Nobody Talks About. One of the issues I described was that qualifying is already way too chaotic as it is with 20 cars on track. In 2026 there will be 22 cars, making things like impeding or cars driving below the delta an even bigger problem. To add to this difficulty, we have cars that need to drive around the track in warm-up laps at a certain speed to charge the batteries, as nobody wants their battery depleted halfway through the lap. We all know teams wait for the very last moment to get the benefit of track evolution and tows from other cars, so prepare yourself to see weird stuff and drivers knocked out in Q1 for no reason other than the imminent chaos of the new engines. This needs to be handled too, and I don't have the solution here. Maybe my smart subscribers have any ideas? If you do, drop them in the comments. If you're not subscribed, please do. I want you to enjoy all my content. And finally, there's the ratio trick that still needs to be dealt with. Now, you guys know I'm biased. I rep Max Verstappen and Red Bull. So when I heard that Mercedes and Red Bull had this ratio trick, I obviously wasn't against it. I mean, if Russell can drive around with an advantage, I want Max to have it too. That goes without saying. Now that I've heard that Red Bull only knows about the trick, but they haven't got it, and they will side with the teams who are against it, I'm also against it. I did read up on it a bit more, and I watched a brilliant video about it from Driver61, which I highly recommend. And if the regulations state that the ratio should be 16:1 rather than 18:1, it was last year, any gimmick on top of the cylinder making it 18:1 shouldn't be allowed. If the FIA measured a hot engine, they would find it was higher than 16:1. It reminds me of the Ferrari fuel flow trick. From what I understand of it, Ferrari bypassed a meter, so the engine received more fuel to burn. Before you come at me saying this is totally different, I know, but it's in the same ballpark. It's going around something to get more out of the engine, which shouldn't be allowed. Also, because I had to see Norris win a title, and I don't want to see Mr. V-Post win a title, okay? As you can see, the FIA has its hands full getting all this sorted. If they don't, then what? Let's talk about what could happen to our beloved sport if the FIA and FOM don't get their finger out and fix things. The first thing I'm worried about is that 3 big legends will call it quits. Max Verstappen already stated that if he doesn't have fun driving these FE cars on steroids, then he'll jump into another series. His diehard fans will set up their tents elsewhere and have a barbecue, as he described it. Some people would cheer if that happened, because even though he gained a lot of fans last season, he still has a lot of stubborn haters too. 2 drivers have already said Max can retire. Lando Norris and George Russell both said that being an F1 driver is a privilege, so you shouldn't complain about the cars. I just think they want less competition, but that's just me. I think ticket sales in Belgium, Austria, Hungary and Italy would take a massive hit, as the Orange Army is always there in the tens of thousands. I know what my chauvinistic Dutch compatriots are like, and they'll cancel their F1 TV subscriptions in an instant if Supermax isn't racing in F1 anymore. Call them fake F1 fans if you want, but they are very passionate and loyal. Another driver who was clear in his verdict about the new regs was Lewis Hamilton. He said that he did laps with 600 meters of lift and coast, which is something he most likely hates after all the leco he had to do last season. I highly doubt that he'll continue if things are as bad as they look now. Again, some people might cheer to see him go, but for the good of the sport, it's better if he's happy and he stays. I've visited 8 Grand Prix so far, and Team LH is always present at races, and I'll tell you what, they're actually nice. Nothing like the ones you see on Twitter. Those keyboard warriors never go to races because they never leave their mom's basements. And the third driver who will call it quits is young Fernando Alonso, who has a Honda power unit again, and they're immediately slow again, like a GP2 engine, like Hamilton called it last week. Alonso said that the chef from his kitchen could drive these cars around corners. That's how slow they go. That's 7 plus 4 plus 2 championships. That's, let me add that up, 13 championships combined. All saying changes need to be made. Surely the organizers must listen to that. See, the thing is that it's not just them saying these things. Scott Mitchell-Malm from the race said that many drivers feel this way but don't dare to speak up. Max Verstappen is speaking up for them, something Russell, as the director of the GPDA, should have done. Esteban Ocon and Charles Leclerc have said that overtaking is very hard, and Pierre Gasly said, laughing, that we should be ready for when Australia starts because it's going to be chaos at the start. So it's clear that this set of regulations needs a lot more work. A lot has already been done since the team started developing, and I can only hope that the organizers keep their flexibility on things and not be too rigid when it comes to the actual racing and safety. Subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei.